Good morning. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday, everybody. A little bit damp this morning. Hopefully, you brought your on the Facebook. Here we go. Da, 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 da. See if this is working. Looks to be. All right. Yeah, so happy Thursday. Sorry about yesterday. Little Miss Stella had to go to the doctor, and I had to have her there right around 8 a.m. So this was pushed back since I was at the vet. So, but then this morning I was sent a post. Matt and I were talking about something, and he sent over this guy. I don't remember. It's like Blake 21 or something. This guy that eats 4,000 to 5,000 calories in one meal, does all this intermittent fasting, and he's an Instagram sensation. And he calls me. So I had said to Matt, there's a difference. Is there a difference between not fat and healthy? So then I started like jotting down some thoughts on that, because you look at this guy's Instagram and he'll have like a 3-pound pastry as his meal for the day, or he'll have 4 pounds of vegetables in a burrito. Morning, mother. And he'll have, just like weird, like he does it for the Instagram type of shit. So, is there a difference between not fat and healthy, or thin and healthy, or, even is there such thing as like skinny fat? So, those are all things that I started just kind of thinking about this morning. And yes, there is a difference between not being fat and being healthy, or being, if you're thin, that doesn't make you healthy, such as skinny fat. Skinny fat is real. It's when you have a low body weight, but you have a high body fat percentage, or even if your body fat percentage isn't necessarily high, but the placement of your body fat, if you have really high visceral body fat, so the body fat around your organs, if that's really high relative to your overall, like normally it's like about 5% of your total body fat, 3 to 5%. If it's 15 to 20%, then that's extremely unhealthy. It's dangerous. Having some level around your organs is good. Having too much is bad. So the bigger thing that I often will look at and talk to people about is what's going on at the cellular level. So this is where like food quality comes more into play. So what I mean by that is the cellular level, we look at different things, like your C-reactive protein, your erythrocyte sedimentation rate, your cytokines, plasma viscosity. These are things that you can have blood work done to test to see, like, okay, what are my inflammatory markers? And if you're eating a diet that's high in a lot of processed foods, so no 3-pound donut, that's correct. If you're someone who's eating a lot of processed food, those markers are all going to be high. One of the, like in your body will let you know, like if you have joint pain, that's an indication that could be inflammation. Of inflammation. Oftentimes, change their arthritis significantly decreases. So people who have really bad acne, oftentimes they make dietary changes, their acne lessens. People with like rosacea or eczema, they make dietary changes, the redness goes away, the eczema goes away on the arms or wherever. Those are all inflammatory markers. So what causes cellular inflammation, which again, in like, if we look at it from like acute and chronic inflammation, acute would be like short term, like if Matt and I are on a bike ride and he falls and cuts his leg open on the road. That's acute inflammation. Now, Matt does nothing for the next 3 weeks, and now it's all swollen and pussy and nasty. That's more of a chronic inflammation. Now, if we sit there with food and it's like over time you're eating a little bit of gluten every day or a little bit of sugar every day, it's all of these little micro, acute inflammations over time become this chronic inflammation. So a lot of times we then have to start reversing the process. And of course, everybody in the world thinks that, well, I was gluten-free for 2 days, but my joints didn't feel any better. Well, they're not gonna. It's gonna take time. You did 50 years worth of damage. You're not gonna undo it in 2 days. But what can cause increases in this cellular inflammation? In number one, I'm gonna put on my list is sugar. So no 3-pound donut, Matthew. That's probably the biggest one that most people suffer from. All alcohol has sugar. 95% of processed food has sugar to some degree. Sugar is the first one. Number two would be processed foods. Then we can get into gluten, dairy, trans fats, unhealthy fats, things of that nature, like the canola oils and vegetable oils. Those are not healthy fat options. They're going to increase inflammation. Again, I'm not going to eat it and then be like, oh my God, my joints hurt, but I'm going to eat it and eat it and eat it and eat it over time. And then it's like, why do I have all of this joint pain? Even not physique-wise, my insides are changing. My insides are breaking down. Irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, things like that are also inflammatory side effects. So you make dietary changes, all of a sudden your IBS is gone. And it's like, wow, magic. We've got processed foods, gluten. Gluten is, a lot of people are gluten sensitive. And I say that being like, if we remove gluten from your diet, do you feel any better? Do you feel any worse? Obviously, when you remove it, you can't replace it with something else. And that's very common. What happens? People will pull gluten out of their diet and they'll say, well, I'm going to go to this instead. I still want to have bread in my life. Well, get over it. You don't need to have bread in your life if you're having issues with gluten. Go 60 days processed bread product. Because you go gluten-free doesn't mean you switch over to Foodies and get the frozen gluten-free Oreo cookies and still an Oreo cookie. But again, people will take some of that stuff and say, well, I'm eating gluten-free bread and I don't feel any different, so I must not have an intolerance to gluten. I guarantee if you eat a very clean diet and remove gluten and, the processed foods, you would see a significant difference. So then is it the gluten or is it the processed food, or could it be both? Same thing with dairy. Some data has come out to say that 2/3 of the population has some degree of lactose intolerance. Are you part of the 2/3 or the 1/3? You know how you find out? You take it out of your diet and you see, when I take it out of my diet, is it better, worse, or indifferent? Typically, have the same inflammatory markers as regular dairy because of the straining process and the amount of probiotics in dairy typically kind of offset each other. But again, you remove it from your diet for 30 to 60 days and then you see if there's any difference. Bad fast foods or bad fat foods. So like your trans fats, your vegetable oils, switch to actually spending money on quality Olive oil. Olive oil should taste like olives. If it comes in a big plastic tub, it is not olive oil regardless of what the label says. Only way it can be olive oil is if it comes in a green or a dark container, and it is, you know, it's got a true stamp of quality, and typically it's going to have a very olive flavor to it. 99% of them will have an olive flavor, and it has to be in a dark green or dark brown glass bottle. That doesn't, just because it's in that, does not mean that it is 100%. It can still be a blend, and they don't have to they don't have to announce that it's a blend. They can just put it on there as olive oil, even though it's not. But there is olive oil in a lot of those blends. So some fruits and vegetables can also cause issues for people because of the oxalates in them. Oxalates can lead to if you oftentimes have kidney stones, oxalates could be one of those causes. So, you know, avoiding certain vegetables and fruits, or the way that you prepare them. You know, broccoli, kale, spinach, cauliflower, those vegetables should always be raw. So those are all things that can cause an increase in your inflammation. Okay, and again, it's not necessarily like, you know, falling off your bike, cutting your leg type of inflammation. It can be, you know, like a slow drip, and then all of a sudden you've got this big problem. Things that can cause a decrease in your inflammation: removing sugar. Again, how you prepare your fruits and vegetables if you're consuming them. If you are going to eat grain, like grain-based foods, consuming whole grain, non-processed. So like if we look at rice, for example, a cup of rice, white rice versus brown rice, basically the same calories. But the white rice has been bleached, it's been cleaned. Well, you're consuming trace amounts of that bleach, that cleaning, all of this stuff that goes on in that white rice. The brown rice has not been cleaned. It still has the hull. It's still got a little bit more of that fiber. It's got more of those nutrients in the hull and in the husk. So you're gonna, that's why it's a quote unquote better food. So things like that, quinoa, amaranth, you know, brown rice, oats, again, non-processed, minimally processed. Lean meats, you know, so not getting like the real, that's some thunder, the real fatty cuts of steak, and, you know, but going with more of a lean meat, healthier meat. And again, it doesn't have to be organic. An organic cow versus a non-organic cow or chicken. Game meats are always good. And then your healthy fats, nuts, seed, healthy oils. Healthy oils, coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil are going to be the top 3. And you can use them all for cooking. Even almond oil, stuff like that. You just want to make sure that you're buying high quality oils. Don't, like, that's a big area where people, you know, grass-fed butter. We use Kerrygold butter for everything. It's very good. Ghee butter, it's just clarified, so it's been cleaned up. You know, so those are good ways that you can decrease your inflammation by eating a diet that contains a lot of that. Very minimally processed, the least amount of processing possible. You know, that's going to be if we look at this low fat craze that we had in the 70s, to knock the fat out of everything, they put the sugar in everything, and then everybody in America gets fat. Well, how come we were told that eating fat makes us fat, but then we eat low fat and everybody's now got the highest obesity rate that we've ever had? Because now we have a sugar problem. So if you start with that and start with the processed food, I guarantee you will start to notice noticeable changes and improvements And then you can fine tune and play around with, I don't know, are you gluten sensitive? You can go and pay and have a test, or you can take it out of your diet. Take it out of your diet for a week and see. So these are things that you can do on your own, but there is a difference between not fat people and healthy. Because you can be, from the outside, you can look like you're the healthiest person on the planet when inside you're a hot mess. So keep that in the back of your mind, especially as you look at a lot of these people who, do these extreme things like this Blake guy, for example, like having, an entire pizza that he puts 4 pounds of vegetables in, all of these cheese, these French fries, like all this stuff. It's not healthy. Just because he's not fat doesn't make what he's eating or himself healthy. So hope that, was informative. I like the sciencey side of things every now and then. So today's Thursday. Have an awesome day. Enjoy the thunderstorms if you're in Syracuse, because apparently that's what we're going to have based on the weather outside. I mean, it is pitch black out the windows right now. Here comes another crack of thunder in a minute. Right on cue. So have a great day. Stay dry. Do your social distancing thing. Thanks, buddy. And, hopefully we'll be back on tomorrow, unless I'm going down to pick up the dog who's currently residing at Cornell for the day. Hopefully only for the day. But, we're hopefully on the mend with that. So I will see you kids tomorrow.